is up, you beautiful, beautiful bug fuckers? So obviously, probably should grab the mic. Obviously I chose tonight's topic. We've been doing a lot of your guys' topics. I decided to choose one for tonight just because I wanted to. Again, thank you for joining me on Thirsty Thursday, Drinking Discussions. So first we're going to start drinking. We're doing Crystal Peak tonight. Crystal Peak has so much, guys. There is so much to unload here. Some of it I went ahead and decided to omit because I want to get into it later. You can get pissed at me, you can get mad, whatever. But there's a lot to unload in this area, and it seems like such a quick area. Because it was just, I don't know, it felt like such a rushed area for me that I actually didn't pay as much attention as I normally do in things. What is happening, you guys? Down in the chat, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, Crystal Peak, Davey. Edner, hey, man. Or lady, I'm not actually sure. I can't see you that far. But thank you, guys. First and foremost, how I begin them, how I end them. I want to thank my Patreons. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for supporting me. These take a whole lot of research. This one in particular took me to some weird places that I never thought about being. Some stuff that was really interesting and different. It took me to science. It took me to a little bit of mysticism. And I'm really excited to jump into this one. The board is completely full. The board you guys always see in the beginning is not exactly the board at all. So I'm going to start releasing those boards probably down in the comments. Maybe in a post, I don't know. But I will start releasing my boards. That way, in case you guys find anything, you can always tell me. I want to know your guys' opinions. I want to know your theories. Mining content to no end like Mila. Dude, I am mining the shit out of everything right now. If you guys are over on the Look Deeper page, I imagine most of you are, I'm pouring through Silksong. I have over 100 pages of notes on Silksong and the game has not released yet. I am digging through every picture, every video, every GIF, everything I can literally find to try and bring you guys content. I'm trying to drop at least 1 to 2 things a day on Silksong over on the page. So if you're interested on what I'm finding, go over there. It won't be a lot of speculation like the Look Deepers because I'm trying to stick to purely facts on that one. With such little information, it's easy to make speculation, and I don't want to do that. I want to stick purely to what we know as fact and lore. So without further ado, guys, thank you for joining me. Let's dive into Crystal Peak. So the Crystal Peak was an area at the top of the world. We know this from the Hunter's Journals where he tells us that the enemies make their homes at the top of the world. I believe it's the Crystal Hunter. But the thing on this is we know one that's not the top of the world. There's higher up at Hollowness Crown. And forgive me, guys, but we are actually going to omit the crown for tonight because we are going to get that in a later date. My Patreons will get that, I believe, next week in that write-up. But I'm going to omit that for now because there's a ton just on the crown and I don't want to spend all night on it. I would rather actually focus on the biggest aspect of Crystal Peak, and that's the crystals themselves. Because these guys were fascinating. I started getting into the enemies and the area, and of course you can't omit the crystals. It's Crystal Peak. But then I started really looking at the crystals, and I found out those crystals are amazing. Those crystals mean more to the lore than I ever realized. Which is really cool because obviously I like lore, but when we get into doing these discussions, I have to really research what we're talking about, and I find new things I didn't know, and I hope to bring them to you guys. Like I said, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about science, we're going to talk a little bit about mysticism, how it ties into the game, what these crystals could potentially be, their real world equivalent, and some minor details that were kind of overlooked. But the crystals are said to glow. They actually glow from a light inside. And so I started there and I started looking, why would these things glow? And of course we have quick focus and deep focus, which are the 2 charms related to the crystals. And so I immediately dove into those as well. Obviously, this means that crystals are focusing soul. And further on that, the deep focus, I believe it is, actually gathers soul from the air. And that was an interesting tidbit because we've always believed that soul is what makes up living beings. However, what this tells us is that life itself is all around us. And so we're pretty small already, kind of, depending on what scale you believe. But there's life around us everywhere. And I found that extremely interesting. And we know that that means life is in not just Crystal Peak, not just in these crystals, but actually in all of Hollownest. Because we can use those charms anywhere. We can use deep focus anywhere. We can use quick focus anywhere. Hell, we can use them together. So they are literally pulling soul from the air and focusing them. And the way they focus them is kind of going to be our science side. But I had to look at what else do we know. We know from Mila and from the Hunter's Journal that these crystals actually sing. And so I had to get into what crystals can actually sing. And oddly enough, I found a real life equivalent that's going to fit everything that we're talking about here, except one, which is kind of a game detail. But the last thing I had to look at was a very odd clue that I really didn't notice. And that's these crystals infect. And I want to use that term loosely. It's always believed that the crystals have ties to the Radiance, and of course Hollownest Crown ties into that. But these crystals themselves are not crystals the way we think of crystals. These crystals may be a lot more than what we've been led to believe. And when we kind of go down that rabbit hole, bear with me because I will try and tie it all back together and explain why I came to this conclusion. But it gets way out there for a moment, and I know it's going to get out there. So looking at all these crystals, we know that they glow from inside. We know that they can focus soul. We know that they sing, and we know that they can infect. We see it with Mila, but there's a much stronger draw and a much stronger reason I included infect. So with that, I had to obviously look at the Crystal Crawler, the Crystal Hunter, the Crystal Ice Husk, the Glimbeck, the Husk Miner, the Shardmite, the Crystal, and the Enraged Guardian. And all of those enemies deal with our crystals. But we also have the Crystal Heart. There was so much in this one small area, guys, that I was erasing stuff off my whiteboard. I kept going back and forth. There was not enough room on my whiteboard, and I'm going to have to find a better way to do this because my whiteboard is overflowing with everything on crystals. Like, how do we get so much out of these crystals? But like I said, we had the Crystal Heart. And the Crystal Heart is the energy core of a mining golem fashioned around a potent crystal. And in that word, or in that description, we have the word potent. So not any crystal would have done. But now we know that they hold substance. They hold worth and value, as told to us by Mila, that, and I believe Sly as well, that these things hold potency. But furthermore, I wanted to look into that because value in a golem doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's used as a power core or an energy core, basically a battery. So there is power in this. And so I had to look and find out what was that power. And oddly enough, Quirrell at the top of Crystal Peak tells it to us that they hold an energy much or similar to Soul that was used down in the City of Tears, but less lethal. And that's where I paused. If it's similar to Soul, we've never seen anything in the game similar to Soul. So I had to look at what these crystals were doing. These crystals were singing. These crystals allowed us to focus Soul. And they glowed. The focus soul was the big one. If they were able to focus soul, how was that possible? How did they do this, and how did we get... Oh, biggest mystery is why my shirt's back on. Probably a good question. Maybe we'll start doing shirt off at like beginning of the month or something. We'll see, guys. But how were they able to focus soul? Here's where the science part got in. I went to the charms, quick focus and deep focus. Quick focus literally tells us that it's a crystal lens. Okay, so I went and I looked up lenses. There are two main types of lenses, guys. There are converging lenses and there are diverging lenses. Converging lenses focus your light. Makes sense for quick focus to be focusing it, because now we're gathering that soul and we're doing it twice as fast. So instead of taking like this, now we're taking it and we're narrowing it down so that we're going extremely fast into this. So we use the crystals as dildos, Pale King. Ah, damn, dude. Blew my fucking theory wide open. But that quick focus is a converging lens. And it's actually much like a magnifying glass. It's focusing that soul so that it is direct and it is intense. But we also know that this charm, unlike deep focus, is man-made. Deep focus is said to be a naturally occurring charm. So somebody was making this charm in the mines to focus soul. So I had to look deeper. No pun intended, but seriously, like, why are people trying to focus soul? What would the purpose be? So I started to look at who all was there. Like I said, the crystal crawler, the crystallized husk, and the enraged or the crystal guardian, depending on which one you're fighting, all deal with these crystals in the fact that they are shooting lasers. And that came as a very big shocker, because lasers are literally amplified light. They are a focused beam of light. So I can show again that this is a lens that focuses soul. They are now focusing what I assumed was light at the time to fire this laser. In, I believe, all three of their descriptions, and I know almost for sure that it's in the crystal crawler and the crystallized husk. The hunter actually describes those lasers shot by those two as searing hot or burning pillars of heat. So now we have energy. Where there's heat, there's energy. Where there's light, there's energy. So now we have energy being focused. We have light being focused. And this is huge, because we need a source. We can't just have light on its own. So I had to look for the source. How are we getting heat? How are we getting this energy? And then I've already told it to you guys. It's soul. Soul is literally being focused through these charms and through these enemies to be shot as a laser. It's not actually that far-fetched, really, when I started looking at this. All of those enemies that use the laser